You ever hear a sound at night that just doesn't belong? Not a loud sound, not a bang, something small, something soft, something that makes the hair on your arm stand up before your brain even figures out why. That's how it started for us. It was the kind of cold that gets into your teeth, the kind you can't shake no matter how many layers you've got on. We were dug into a ridge somewhere east of a town that didn't have a name anymore. It used to, but the war had erased it off the maps and off most people's memories too. Just a line of broken walls and a road that led nowhere good. I was 23 years old. I want you to remember that, 23. I'd been in country for 9 months and I thought I'd already seen everything a man could see. I hadn't, not even close. There were 6 of us on that ridge. 6. Holding a position that should have had 30. We weren't supposed to be heroes. We were supposed to watch the road, call in if anything moved, and stay alive until the relief column came through in 4 days. 4 days, I'll never forget that number either. Let me tell you about the night it happened. It was somewhere past 2 in the morning. No moon. The sky was just this thick, heavy black, like somebody had thrown a wool blanket over the whole world. You couldn't see your own hand. You learned to feel your way around. You learned to trust your ears more than your eyes. And my ears caught it first. A scrape out near the wire. Now I want to be honest with you. When you're that tired, your mind plays tricks. You hear footsteps that aren't there. You see shapes moving that turn out to be a bush, a rock, your own shadow. So the first thing I did was tell myself it was nothing. But then I heard it again. Scrape, pause, scrape. Slow, careful, the way a man moves when he doesn't want to be heard. I reached over in the dark and grabbed Dawson's boot. Dawson was the closest to me, curled up in the dirt trying to get an hour of sleep. He came awake fast. Out here you learn to wake up without making a sound. I felt his hand close over mine, just to say, I'm up, I hear you. I leaned in close to his ear. Somebody's at the wire, I whispered. My voice came out shaking. I wasn't proud of that, but there it is. He went still, real still, the kind of still that means a man's listening with his whole body. And then we both heard it, that scrape again, closer now. Here's the thing you have to understand about where we were. There were no civilians out here. None. The whole area had been cleared months ago. Anybody walking around our wire at 2 in the morning in the dark in the cold was not a lost shepherd. They were not a kid who'd wandered off. They were a problem, a deadly one. We'd been warned about infiltrators, small teams that would slip up on a position in the night, cut the wire silent as ghosts, and be inside your perimeter slitting throats before anybody fired a shot. We'd heard the stories. We'd seen what was left at a checkpoint 40 kilometers back that hadn't been so lucky. So when I heard that scrape, my whole body turned to ice. Dawson moved like a snake. He woke the others one at a time, a hand on a shoulder, a finger to lips they couldn't see but knew were there. Within maybe 90 seconds, all 6 of us were awake and facing outward, weapons up, breathing through our mouths so the sound wouldn't carry. I could hear my own heart, I swear I could, banging away in my chest like it wanted out. Sergeant Maddox was in charge of our little group. He'd been doing this for 11 years. 11. He had a face like an old leather boot and a voice that never went above a low rumble even when everything was falling apart. He crawled over to where I was and put his mouth right against my ear. Where he breathed. I pointed into the black, toward the northeast corner of the wire. He couldn't see my hand, but he felt it move and he knew. He clicked his tongue twice. That was a signal we all knew. Hold, don't fire, confirm before you shoot. Because here's the thing, Maddox was careful, always. He'd lost a man once years back to a jumpy trigger finger. A young soldier had fired at a shadow and the shadow turned out to be one of their own, a guy who'd gotten turned around in the dark coming back from a patrol. Maddox never let himself forget that. He drilled it into us over and over. Confirm before you fire. You can't take a bullet back. So we waited. And the scrape came again. This time with it something else. A sound I couldn't place at first, a kind of dragging, like something heavy being pulled across the dirt, slow, painful almost. Dawson found my hand in the dark again and squeezed once. "You hearing this?" Yeah, I was hearing it. There was a man out there, and he was either trying to sneak up on us, or he was hurt bad and crawling. The problem was, in the dark, we couldn't tell which, and in our world, guessing wrong got people killed. Maddox made a decision. He always did, even when nobody else could. He reached for the night vision. We only had one working set. The others had died weeks ago and never got replaced, and brought it up to his eye real slow. I watched his silhouette go rigid. I heard him breathe out very soft. "I got one body," he whispered, "crawling toward the wire, can't see weapons." Can't see weapons. That was the killer. That word, can't. In the dark, with one half-broken scope, you couldn't be sure of anything. A man crawling could be reaching for a rifle. He could be reaching for a grenade. He could be a wounded enemy soldier playing dead until he got close enough to take a few of us with him. We'd heard about that too. Or he could be nothing, a trick of the cold, a dying animal. But it wasn't an animal. We all knew that now. It was a man. Maddox passed the scope to me. My hands were so cold I almost dropped it. I brought it up and looked. And there he was. A green ghost in the dark, low against the ground, one arm reaching out, dragging himself forward inch by inch. His other arm wasn't moving right, tucked up under him, wrong, and he was making for our wire like it was the last thing on earth he wanted to reach. I'll be honest, my finger was on the trigger. I'm not ashamed to say it now because I think most men would tell you the same. You're 23, you're scared out of your mind, you've heard the stories, and there's a shape in the dark crawling toward you in a place where nothing friendly is supposed to be. Every nerve in your body is screaming one word. Shoot. But I didn't. Because of Maddox. Because of that voice in my head saying confirm before you fire. Because of a man I never met who died years before I ever picked up a rifle. I lowered the scope. "He's hurt," I whispered. "He's dragging, could be a trap." Maddox nodded. I felt it more than saw it. "Could be," he said. "Hold." So we held. 6 rifles aimed at one crawling shape in the dark, and not one of us pulling a trigger, and the cold coming up through the dirt and into our bones, and that scrape, scrape, dragging sound getting closer with every second. And then the radio crackled. I need to stop here and tell you about the radio, because the radio is everything in this story. Out there, the radio was your lifeline, your only voice to the rest of the world. Through it came orders, warnings, weather, supply runs, the sound of other human beings who weren't trying to kill you. We guarded it like gold. We kept it low, kept it quiet, only used it when we had to because the wrong people could listen in. That night the radio had been silent for hours, dead air. We weren't expecting anything. Command knew we were holding and holding quiet. So when it crackled, all 6 of us flinched. It was just static at first, a wash of white noise, then it cut out, then it came back. And then a voice came through, faint, broken up, riding under the static like it was coming from the bottom of the ocean. "Any station, this net, White Dove, say again, White Dove." I felt Maddox go absolutely still beside me, stone still. And I didn't understand why, not yet. White Dove. It meant nothing to me, just a call sign. We had dozens. Hawk, Anvil, Ranger, Saber, every unit, every post, every patrol had one. White Dove was just another bird in a war full of them. But it meant something to Maddox. In the green glow of that one working scope, I saw his face. And I had never, not once in 9 months, seen Sergeant Maddox look the way he looked right then. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Because, as it turned out, he had. Let me back up. I have to back up, or none of this is going to make sense to you. Before I shipped out, before I ever met Maddox or Dawson or any of them, there was a story that went around. The kind of story old soldiers tell new ones when the lights are low and there's nothing else to do. Half legend, half warning. You never knew how much was true. The story was about a call sign, White Dove. The way I'd heard it, and I'd heard it 3 or 4 times by then, each time a little different white dove had been a radio operator. Years back. Another war almost, the way time ran out there. A real one, a person, not just a word. Some said it was a woman, some said a man. Nobody who told the story had ever actually met them. That was the thing about the White Dove story. It was always somebody's cousin, somebody's old sergeant, somebody's buddy from another unit. Never the person telling it. What everybody agreed on was this. White Dove had been the voice that brought people home. When a patrol got lost, White Dove talked them in. When a position got overrun and men scattered into the dark, it was White Dove on the net, calm as still water, gathering them up one by one, guiding them back. They said White Dove never raised their voice, never panicked. No matter how bad it got, and out there it got bad, that voice on the radio stayed steady, and as long as you could hear it, you believed you were going to make it. They said White Dove stayed on the air through things that should have killed anybody, stayed talking men home while the world came apart. And then, well, that's where the story changed depending on who told it. Some said White Dove was killed. A position overrun, the radio going dead mid-sentence, the voice cut off forever. Some said White Dove went missing, never found, never confirmed, just gone, swallowed up by the war like so many were. Some said, and these were the ones who told it quietest, that White Dove was still out there, still on the net sometimes. That on the worst nights, when men were lost and afraid and certain they were going to die, the radio would crackle, and a calm voice would come through and bring them home. A ghost on the radio. I didn't believe it, of course I didn't. I was 23 and I thought I knew what was real. Ghost stories were for kids and for men too scared to admit they were scared. White Dove was a nice story, that's all it was. A nice story to tell in the dark. That's what I believed. Right up until 2 in the morning on that ridge, when I heard that broken voice come through the static. White Dove, any station. And I saw Sergeant Maddox's face. Here's what you don't know yet. What I didn't know yet, crouched in the dark with my rifle and my racing heart. Maddox had been there. Years before. The real story, the one underneath all the campfire versions. Maddox had been one of the men White Dove brought home. He told me later, much later, when it was all over and we were sitting in the back of a truck with the war finally behind us. He told me the whole thing. And I'm going to tell it to you the way he told it to me, because you need it to understand what happened next. Maddox had been young once, hard as that is to believe, younger than me. His first deployment, his unit got cut to pieces in an ambush in a valley with no good name. Scattered. Men running in every direction in the dark, no leadership, no plan, just terror and the sound of incoming, and the certainty that they were all about to die out there alone. And then the radio. A voice, calm, quiet, this is White Dove, I've got you, listen to my voice, you're going to be all right, tell me what you see. Maddox said he was 19 and crying in a ditch with a dead man's blood on his hands, and he wanted his mother, and he was sure, absolutely sure, that the next hour was his last. And that voice came through the radio and didn't tell him to be brave. Didn't tell him to fight. Just said, tell me what you see. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. And piece by piece, that voice gathered them up, talked the scattered men toward each other in the dark, talked them away from the enemy and toward a culvert under the road where they could hide. Stayed on the net the whole night, never once breaking, until the sun came up and a relief force finally pushed through. 11 men walked out of that valley. Maddox was one of them. 11 out of a platoon that should have been 40. He never met White Dove. Tried to after, went looking. Wanted to shake the hand of the person who'd kept him alive. And he couldn't find them, couldn't find a name, couldn't find a face. Different people gave him different answers and none of the answers matched. It was like trying to grab smoke. And then somebody told him White Dove was dead. killed in another action, weeks after the night in the valley. A position overrun. The radio going dead mid-sentence. Maddox carried that for years. The man who saved his life had a voice and nothing else. No grave he could visit. No face he could picture. Just a call sign and a story that got bigger and stranger every time it got told, until even Maddox half wondered if he dreamed the whole thing. That's why his face looked the way it did, there on the ridge in the dark. Because the dead don't talk on the radio. But the radio was still talking. White Dove, requesting, any station this net, I am pinned, say again I'm pinned. The voice was a man's, I could hear that now, older, strained, each word coming out like it cost him something. Maddox snatched the handset. His hand wasn't steady, and I'd never seen Maddox's hand not be steady. He keyed it. White Dove, this is Ridge Actual, he said, low and fast. I read you weak but readable. Say your situation. Over. A pause, long, the static rolling. Then Ridge Actual, thank God somebody's there. The man's voice cracked. I'm down, east of your position, maybe. 200 meters, took rounds in the leg, can't walk, I've been crawling. God, I don't know how long I've been crawling. And that's when it hit me. The shape in the dark, the crawling man dragging himself toward our wire. That was him, that was the voice on the radio, they were the same man. I grabbed the scope again, hands shaking, and put it up to my eye. The green ghost was still there, low against the ground, that one arm reaching, dragging himself forward inch by inch toward our wire. And I had almost shot him. I felt sick. I felt the whole night tilt under me. We had been one breath, one twitch of a finger, away from putting a burst into a wounded man crawling toward us in the dark. A man who, somehow, impossibly, was calling himself by the most sacred call sign any of us had ever heard. Maddox, I whispered. Maddox, the guy on the radio, he's the crawler. He's the one at the wire, it's the same man. Maddox went rigid. Then he keyed the handset again. White Dove, Ridge Actual. Are you crawling toward a wire perimeter, northwest of your position? Over. A wet, gasping breath came through the radio. Yeah, the voice said. Yeah, I can see. I think I can see a position. Is that you? Please tell me that's you. I've been out here so long. Maddox closed his eyes for a second, just a second. That's us, he said. Hold what you got, White Dove. Don't crawl any further, you hear me? Stop crawling. My men have rifles on you and it's black as pitch out here. You crawl into that wire in the dark, you could get yourself killed. Stop where you are and stay on the radio. I'm coming to get you. Over. You're coming, the voice broke completely now. You're really coming. I'm really coming, Maddox said. Stay on the net. Keep talking to me. That's an order, White Dove, don't you stop talking. And then Maddox did something I'll remember for the rest of my life. He looked at me, and even in that dark I could feel the weight of it, and he said, You're coming with me. You don't say no to Maddox, but I want you to know I didn't want to. That's a strange thing to admit. 20 minutes earlier I'd been ready to put a bullet in that shape in the dark. Now there was nothing in the world I wanted more than to crawl out into that black, dangerous open ground and drag him back in. Maybe it was the story. Maybe it was guilt for almost killing him. Maybe it was just that you reach a point out there where you stop thinking about yourself and start thinking about the man who needs you. I don't know. I've turned it over 1,000 times since. I just know that when Maddox said you're coming with me, something in my chest said yes before my fear could say anything at all. We left the scope with Dawson. He'd cover us. The other 3 would hold the perimeter. If it was a trap, and it could still be a trap, we couldn't rule that out. You can never fully rule it out. Then Dawson was our eyes, and he'd put rounds down to cover our crawl back. Maddox grabbed the radio. We weren't leaving it. The voice was our thread to the man in the dark, and we weren't cutting it. White Dove, Ridge Actual, 2 of us are coming out to you. Do not move. Do not reach for anything. Keep your hands where I can see them when we get close. We're coming to help you, but I've got young guns out here and everybody's scared. Don't give anybody a reason." "You copy, over." "I copy," the voice said. "I won't move, I swear to God I won't move." A pause, a wet laugh almost. "Funny, I used to be the one saying that to people. Don't move, I've got you, just keep talking. Now look at me." Maddox keyed back. "Yeah," he said quietly, "now look at you." And we went over the wire. I have never been so afraid in my life. Not before, not since. Out beyond the wire there was no cover. None. Just open, broken ground, frozen hard, and that thick black sky pressing down, and somewhere in front of us a wounded man, and somewhere all around us maybe the people who'd wounded him. Because here's the thing nobody was saying out loud. If White Dove had taken rounds, somebody had fired them. And that somebody might still be out there, watching, waiting for exactly this, for us to come out and try to save him. We crawled. Low, slow, the cold ground burning our hands and knees, our breath fogging in front of our faces. Maddox went first. I followed. The radio crackled soft between us, the voice talking, the way Maddox had ordered, and that voice was our compass in the dark. "Keep talking, White Dove," Maddox breathed into the handset. "Where you from? Tell me where you're from." "North," the voice said. "Little town up north, you wouldn't know it. Nobody knows it. We had a river. I used to fish that river with my old man before any of this." A gasp of pain. "Sorry, leg hurts to talk." "Talk anyway," Maddox said. "I need your voice to find you. Keep going." So he talked. About the river. About his father. About a dog he'd had as a boy. And we crawled toward that voice through the freezing dark, and I remember thinking, this is the most human thing I have ever done. Crawling on my belly toward a stranger's voice telling me about a dog, with my heart in my throat and death all around us. We'd gone maybe 150 meters when Maddox stopped, held up a fist. I froze. Ahead of us, low against the ground, a shape. Maddox keyed the radio, barely a whisper now. "White Dove, I think I see you. Real slow, lift one hand, just one. Let me know it's you." In the dark ahead a hand rose, slow, trembling, then lowered. It was him. We crawled the last 20 meters fast. And then we were on him, and I got my first real look at the man called White Dove. He was old, older than I'd expected. There was gray in his beard and deep lines carved into a face that had seen far too much. His uniform was old too, old pattern, faded, not like ours. Torn up now and dark with blood from the waist down. His leg was a mess. I won't describe it. You don't need that picture. But it was bad, and the fact that he'd crawled even a foot on it, let alone hundreds of meters, told me everything I needed to know about the kind of man he was. His eyes found Maddox's face in the dark, and he smiled, a real smile through all that pain. "You came," he whispered. "Course I came," Maddox said, already pulling out a field dressing, already going to work on the leg with hands that had gone perfectly steady again now that there was a job to do. "You're White Dove. You think I'd leave White Dove out here?" The old man laughed, and it turned into a cough, and the cough had blood in it. "You know the name," he said. "How does a kid your age know the name?" And Maddox stopped, just for a second. His hand stopped on the bloody dressing, and he looked at the old man's face. "You brought me home once," Maddox said. "Years ago, a valley, an ambush. I was 19 and I was going to die in a ditch, and a voice came over the radio and said, 'Tell me what you see.' And it talked me out. 11 of us walked out of that valley because of a voice on the radio. I spent years trying to find out who you were. They told me you were dead." The old man stared at him. And then his eyes filled up. Just filled right up, there in the dark, in the cold, with his leg torn apart and enemies maybe all around us. "The valley," he whispered. 11 men, I remember everyone. I never knew if you made it. We never knew after, you talk them out and then they're gone and you never know." His hand came up and gripped Maddox's wrist. "You made it, you made it." "I made it," Maddox said. His voice wasn't steady anymore. "And now I'm getting you home. You hear me, White Dove? You brought me home. Now it's my turn. I am getting you home." And then behind us, out in the dark, a rifle bolt racked. I have never moved so fast in my life. The sound came from our left, that unmistakable metallic clack of a weapon being made ready. And Maddox shoved the old man flat, and I was already rolling, bringing my rifle up, my whole body screaming. "Contact left," I hissed. "You don't shout even then, even with your heart trying to climb out of your mouth." From back on the ridge, Dawson opened up. He'd seen it through the scope movement, a shape, the threat we'd all been afraid of. Tracers cut the dark over our heads, snapping toward whatever was out there to our left. The night lit up in stutters of light. Muzzle flash answered from the dark. They were there. They'd been there the whole time, waiting, just like we'd feared. It's hard to describe a firefight in the dark to someone who's never been in one. It's chaos. It's noise that takes the inside of your skull and shakes it. It's flashes that blind you and leave you seeing spots, and the dirt kicking up around you. And the only thing keeping you sane is the man next to you and the job in front of you. And the job in front of us was getting White Dove home. Maddox made the call instantly. "We move now, grab him, Gio." There was no time to be gentle. We each got an arm under the old man, and we hauled him up between us, and we ran, half dragged. All three of us stumbling across that broken, frozen ground while Dawson and the others put down everything they had to cover us. The old man screamed once when his ruined leg dragged across the dirt, and then he clamped his jaw shut and didn't make another sound, and I knew somehow that he was doing it for us, so we wouldn't hesitate, so we wouldn't stop. Rounds cracked past us. One hit so close I felt the wind of it on my cheek. I have never run like that, the old man's weight between us, my lungs on fire, the wire ahead seeming to get no closer no matter how hard we pushed. And then, the old man, even half dead, even being dragged through gunfire, the old man started talking. Not to us, into the radio handset that was still clipped to Maddox's gear, that had been transmitting this whole time on the open net. All stations, he gasped out, blood on his lips, his voice somehow finding that old calm even now, even here. "This is White Dove. Friendlies crossing the wire, northwest position, 3 men coming in hot. Hold your fire on the wire, hold your fire, we are coming home." And I understood, even in the middle of all that. I understood what he was, what he'd always been. He was the voice that brought people home. Even now, even being the one carried, he was still doing it. It was just who he was, all the way down to the bone. We hit the wire. The others grabbed us, pulled us through, and we tumbled down into the position in a heap, all 3 of us, the old man between us, the firefight still raging over our heads. We were in, we'd made it. And White Dove was still breathing. We got him down behind the best cover we had, which wasn't much, a low broken wall and a fighting hole half full of frozen mud. Maddox went back to work on the leg. The rest of us turned outward and fought. I won't take you blow by blow through the next 20 minutes. Some of it I don't fully remember anyway, that's how it goes. Your brain only keeps pieces. I remember the cold suddenly not mattering at all. I remember Dawson beside me, calm as anything, calling out targets in that flat voice of his. I remember running low on ammunition and the spike of fear that came with it. I remember Maddox shouting fire commands while his hands stayed buried in the work of keeping a dying man alive, doing 2 impossible things at once like it was nothing. And I remember the radio. Because while we fought, Maddox got on the net and called it in. Called for the relief column, the one that wasn't due for 4 days. Called for anyone, and the old man, drifting in and out, kept surfacing to help. He knew things, frequencies, procedures, the way to phrase a call so it cut through and got answered. Even half-conscious, even gray in the face, he was working the radio with us for us. At one point I heard him say weakly, "Tell them White Dove is requesting. Use the name. The name still means something, trust me." Maddox used the name. And I'll be damned, it did mean something. The response that came back over the radio was instant, different. There were men out there in the dark, other units, other positions. who heard that call sign and reacted like they'd been hit with electricity. The relief column that was 4 days out, it turned out a piece of it was a lot closer than 4 days. A patrol, a quick reaction force that had been operating in the area. And when they heard White Dove is requesting, they came. They came hard. The first I knew of it was a new sound under the gunfire. A deep, growing rumble. Engines. Then headlights lancing through the dark from the south, and the heavy thump-thump-thump of a mounted gun opening up on the enemy positions out beyond our wire. The men who'd ambushed White Dove, the men who'd been trying to finish the job, and us with it, broke. They couldn't stand against armor coming in fast and angry. The muzzle flashes out in the dark stuttered and died and pulled back, and then there was just the roar of engines and our own ragged breathing and the relief column rolling up to our position like the cavalry in an old movie, except real, except cold, except it actually happened to me. We'd made it. All of us. I sat down hard in the frozen mud. I think I laughed. I think I might have cried a little too. After something like that, the two get mixed up. But here's the part I really need you to hear. The part this whole story has been crawling toward, the same way that old man crawled toward our wire in the dark. A medic from the relief column dropped down next to White Dove and went to work. Real medic, real gear, things we didn't have. He cut away the dressing Maddox had packed on, and he looked at the leg and his face went tight, and then he looked at the old man's face and something happened in his expression. A flicker, like recognition, like he half knew, half couldn't believe. "Sir," the medic said, "Sir, what's your name, your real name? I need it for the—" And the old man told him. "I won't put it here. It wasn't a famous name. It wasn't anybody you'd have heard of. It was just a man's name, a plain one, the kind your grandfather might have had." But the medic went very still. "You're him," the medic said. "The White Dove, the real one. They told us, sir, they told us you were dead, years ago. There's a memorial, there's a plaque. Your name's on a wall, sir. You've been dead for years." And the old man, torn up, bleeding, half gone, he laughed. Softly. The gentlest sound in the world after a night full of gunfire. "Yeah," he whispered. "I heard about that, the plaque," he coughed. "Truth is, after the valley, after a lot of valleys, I got captured. Long story, long bad story, got out eventually. By the time I got back to friendly lines, there'd already been a service, already a plaque, and I thought," he closed his eyes, "I thought maybe it was better that way. Let White Dove be dead, let him be the story, the voice on the radio that never failed, better than what I came back as. Just a broken old man who couldn't even fish his own river anymore." Nobody said anything. The whole position had gone quiet around him. "So I went home," he said. "Quiet, no fuss, and I lived years, quiet years, and I should have stayed there, but the war came back around, it always does, and there were boys out here, boys like you." His eyes found me, found Maddox. "Somebody's got to bring the boys home, and I thought White Dove's dead, sure, but the radio still works, so I came back. Quiet, unofficial, just me and a radio, doing the one thing I was ever any good at." Maddox was holding the old man's hand now. I don't think he even knew he was doing it. "You came back," Maddox said, "to do this. At your age, after everything they did to you, you came back to talk scared kids home over a radio." The old man smiled. "It's the only thing I ever did," he said. "That was worth a damn." They flew him out at first light. I remember standing there in the gray cold dawn watching them load the old man onto the bird, watching that broken leg, that gray face. I remember being absolutely certain I'd never see him again, that he wouldn't make it, that after a night like that, a man that old and that hurt, the cards just weren't in his favor. I was wrong. He made it. It took a long time, months. The leg was the kind of bad that takes everything they've got to save, and even then it was never the same. But he lived. The voice that had brought so many men home, it didn't get cut off in the static after all. Not that night. Not for a good while yet. And here's the strange, beautiful thing that happened after. You can't unfind a ghost. Once that medic radioed in who he'd treated, once the name went up the chain, there was no putting White Dove back in the grave. The story got out. The real story, the one Maddox had been chasing for years. The man on the plaque was alive. The voice from 100 firefights, the one half of them thought they'd dreamed, was a real man with a real name and a real river he used to fish with his father. Men came to see him. That's the part that gets me even now. Men came from all over. Old men, mostly, with gray in their beards like his. Men he'd talked home over the radio decades ago, who'd spent their whole lives wondering who that voice belonged to. They came to shake his hand, to finally put a face to the voice that had kept them alive on the worst night of their lives. Maddox went, of course. Took me with him. We sat with the old man in a quiet room a long way from any war, and there was no static and no gunfire and no cold, just an old soldier in a chair by a window, and the men he'd saved, one after another, coming through the door. I watched a grown man, a hard old man, the kind who'd seen things that would break most people. I watched him walk in, see White Dove's face, and just fall apart, just crumble right there in the doorway. "It was you," he kept saying. "It was you. All these years, it was you." And White Dove would just hold his hand and say, soft as anything, the same thing he'd said to all of them once, in the dark, over a radio, when they were sure they were going to die. "I had you, I always had you, you're home now." The old man lived a few more years after that. Good years, I'm told. He never did fish his river again, the leg wouldn't let him, but they tell me he sat by it. Plenty. With friends. With the men he'd brought home. That's not a bad way to spend the time you've got left, sitting by your river with the people you saved. When he finally did pass, it wasn't in a war zone. It wasn't alone in the cold. It was in a warm bed with people who loved him holding his hand. And the last thing he did, they say, the very last thing, was reach out, like a man reaching for a radio handset, and whisper something nobody could quite hear. I like to think I know what it was. I think he was bringing one more soldier home. I'm an old man myself now, older than I ever thought I'd get, that night on the ridge with my finger on the trigger and a ghost crawling toward me in the dark. I think about it more than I should, how close I came, how one twitch of a scared kid's finger would have ended it, would have killed the man who'd saved more lives than I'll ever know, including, in a roundabout way, my own. Because if I'd shot White Dove that night, I wouldn't have learned what I learned from him, about what it means to keep your head when everything's coming apart, about how the bravest thing a man can do sometimes isn't to fight, it's to stay on the line, stay calm, and tell a frightened person, "I've got you, you're going to be okay." I've spent my whole life since trying to be that voice for somebody, anybody. I'm no White Dove, nobody was, but I try. People ask me sometimes if I believe in ghosts after everything, after that night. And I tell them the truth. I tell them I crawled out into the dark once, certain I was going after a ghost, and what I found wasn't a ghost at all. It was just a man, an old, broken, ordinary man who decided again and again, against every reason not to keep coming back, to keep his voice steady, to keep bringing people home. That's not a ghost. That's the realest thing I ever found in this world. So no, I don't believe in ghosts. But I believe in White Dove. And on the cold nights, the really cold ones, the ones that get into your teeth, sometimes I swear I can still hear that voice, somewhere far off, riding under the static, calm as still water, saying the only words that ever mattered out there in the dark. "Tell me what you see, I've got you, you're going to be all right. You're home now. You're home."